Welcome to Let's Talk TCI Real Estate, a show obviously that is geared towards all things real estate in the Turks and Caicos Islands. I am excited to be on season 5, and this is episode 2. And obviously, like I said, it's always good to be in your homes on Thursday. Today we are here. I am here with my honorable guest, and it's the second time the Honorable Jamell Robinson is going to be on this show. And today he's going to be updating us on the housing policy as well as discussing some of the new initiatives that is coming forward in terms of infrastructure. So without any further delay, we're going to dive right into the show because it's a lot to be discussed today. And I want to say to you, please like and share. Let everyone know that we are on live. And definitely, if you have any burning questions, feel free to put it in the comment section. And definitely, if I can see it while I'm glancing down, I will do my best to ask those questions for you. I remember the last time I had Honorable Robinson on the show, I had a number of questions that came after the fact. And so I don't want you to miss this opportunity today. So please call your friends, tell them we are on live. And so we're just going to move right into the program. And without any further delay, I'm going to ask you, Honorable Robinson, can you please greet the listening audience before we begin?
Thank you, Vanika, and it's good to be back with you, sitting on to give these updates. And good evening, Turks and Caicos, and those listening around the world. #1 real estate show out there. Good to have some local dialogue about what's taking place in the infrastructure sector across the Turks and Caicos Islands. And of course, today the focus being on housing and the housing policy that was launched early last year to give an update. So I'm definitely happy to be back and give a progress report on what's going on.
Thank you so much. Sorry, I was just nudging just to make sure I could see if anybody have any comments or questions. So I was just glancing at my phone for a little bit, but you have my full attention.
No problem.
So definitely, it's a pleasure to have you back. And I'm like I say, I'm very excited to get an update on this program and also to be able to dive just a little deeper into getting some of the answers to some questions that we may have about the housing policy. Let me say, just for the listening audience, you are the Minister of Physical Planning, Infrastructure, and Development. Can you just give us a little, synopsis as to what is the full scope of your ministry?
Okay, so my ministry essentially has 5 departments that I have responsibility for. #1 is estates management, which essentially is responsible for the security, cleaning, and rental of properties throughout Turks and Caicos government. So that's them in a nutshell. I also have the Department of Physical Planning, which of course has the planning board. So we're in charge of making sure we regulate all of the structures that are built throughout the Turks and Caicos Islands. And of course, right now, my planning department, as well as my housing department, is on the informal settlement unit, which is going to be dealing with the informal settlements throughout the Turks and Caicos Islands. So a lot of work has been going into that through the planning department as well, being a part of that unit or that committee. Then you have, of course, the housing department, which is very new. It's probably only 2+ years old now because it was instituted under the Progressive National Party government. And we are responsible for the housing policy that we carried out, and we'll get deeper into that in a little bit. And then, of course, there's Public Works, which has several divisions, which has Project Management Division, which is responsible basically for all the capital projects, either directly or indirectly throughout the Turks and Caicos Islands. And of course, a little bit later, we'll probably touch on those capital projects that are out contracted, about to be contracted, and at the evaluation stage. And you also have the Mechanical Services Division, as well as the Maintenance Division. Well, Mechanical Services, vehicles, of course. Maintenance Division, which is responsible for the maintenance of all of government property. So they're kind of like the sister unit to the estates management, which deals with private sector stuff. They deal with all the government-owned buildings throughout the Turks and Caicos Islands in terms of maintenance of schools, government-owned buildings. And then you have Public Works proper, which would be responsibility for like your roads and your different projects, which might be on a more of a recurrent level. So in a nutshell, that's the 4 substantive ones under the department, but I also have responsibility for disaster management. So I kind of do that as the liaison minister for the Premier and the Governor. So the Permanent Secretary of National Security reports to me on disaster management related issues. So that department is on my portfolio as a kind of appendage. So it should be Minister of Physical Planning and Infrastructure Development and Disaster Management. But yeah, but I usually say with responsibility for disaster management. So that's the 5 departments that I'm responsible for.
So you have a lot of responsibility on your head.
You could say that. You could
but
say
you're
that.
managing it well.
Definitely. Well, I don't have. I came in with 1 gray hair, and I still have that 1 gray hair, so I'm doing okay.
I can't see it, so that means you're doing really good.
Yes.
Great. So, like I said, you have a lot of responsibility, and a lot of what your responsibility is actually ties in with real estate. There's so many the segments of it, like the planning, the informal settlement, a lot of those things. But today we're focusing on the housing part of it, because I feel like this is still a hot button topic that people are still talking about, and we need to understand a little bit more about it. So, if you can explain for us what a little bit about the housing policy, because I know that there are 3 programs. Can you give us a deep dive into each one of these programs, please?
All right, no problem. I will start in reverse because I know policy 1 is the one that people most want. So I'll save that for last, because that's the one we're going to deepest dive. So we have program 3, which is community infilling and urban renewal. So essentially what that is we've already received applications for that program, because all programs are launched right now. Where essentially we go into communities where there are dilapidated homes, where the elderly or those that are most vulnerable amongst us need assistance to basically move back into those types of homes, into our traditional neighborhoods. That those that apply, once they are approved, we'll be able to either demolish that space or build them new homes. So far we've had 43 applicants for that program, and the last number I checked, there's about 11 that are pre-approved. So the housing committee will be evaluating those formally within the next month. So once we get those persons approved, then that goes to cabinet, and then we'll move forward with actually rebuilding new homes for those persons. So it'll be at least 11 based on the feedback I've gotten from the application process, but hopefully it is a little bit more.
Are you satisfied with the response from that application process?
Yeah. I think it's about the level I thought, because some of those applicants that applied for program 3 ended up really being persons for program 2, which is the refurbishment and home improvement program, which I can talk about in a second.
Yes.
So a lot of persons might have misplaced their thing, but so what we just did is just move them into the right category, depending on their stuff. So I know there is likely more persons that need the assistance from a program 3, which is whether it's the demolition portion or the actual new rebuilds. But I think our main goal is to get the program rolling, get people confident that, all right, well, this is something that can be done. So the next time when we open up the application process again, hopefully in the near-ish future, then we'll be able to get even more applicants, because while I think we did a lot with the PR side of things, I don't think everybody understood what we were trying to achieve.
Right.
But program 2 now, now this crew, 332 persons applied.
That's a lot.
Exactly. Yes. So what we're doing with that program, which is the home improvement / refurbishment program, that targets basically the entire country and persons who might have received damages to their home from Hurricane Ike 2008, Irma 2017, and Fiona in 2022. Right? So what we would have done as a government in general, there were persons who would have qualified for cash grants after Hurricane Fiona specifically. Okay. Right? So that program was ran out of the Premier's office. So that program kind of ran parallel to our program 2, which is a wider program. So I believe that program awarded somewhere up to just under $700,000 in cash grants, from as low as, I think the lowest one was up like about $5,000 up to $25,000 max. So they had 3 tiers of those persons who would have been granted under the Fiona program. But this covers persons who might have had damages, but also persons who just had incomplete homes or needed improvement or just had substandard living conditions, right? So that program targets Turks and Caicos Islanders only. So where we are with that, again, 333 persons would have applied. We've already vetted the initial batch of 60. We have approved 39 of that initial 60. The second batch, I believe, there should have been a housing committee meeting to do the second batch of 60 on the 22nd of last month, January. So I have to get an update from my housing team on the numbers or who was approved there. But a part of it, because it's a capital program, we put in place a housing framework for contractors to be able to pre-qualify so they can get the bids, so they can bid on each person's house. Because while I know persons would have their preferred contractor say, all right, well, you do the assessment for me, I want this person to build my house or refurbish my house, it's our duty to ensure that whoever actually wins these awards are actually qualified contractors, just not any run-of-the-mill person, because we have to ensure one, value for money, and that the reputation of the program isn't ruined because someone who says they're a contractor isn't really a contractor. So we have to find that balance, as well as trying to get as many Turks and Caicos Islander contractors the opportunity to be a part of it. So that tender would have closed yesterday, the 31st. So in the next few days or so, our team is going to go and evaluate all the contractors. Hopefully we get a number of them pre-qualified so they can receive the bids across Turks and Caicos Islands. Because again, if the majority of that 332 applicants are qualified, based on the projected numbers, we're talking about upwards of $16.6 million worth of home repairs that needs to be done across the country. So that's a lot of work. So we need the qualified
let me just ask a question from that. You said that you were doing it in batches because of how many applications.
Correct.
So how long do you anticipate it's going to take for you to get through all of those applicants? Because I'm sure persons have submitted, they're waiting to hear back whether they are approved or not.
I don't think the entirety of the remainder should take more than at most 3-4 months to complete the vetting, because it is a tedious process, but it is straightforward enough that our committee can make a decision. Because even before it gets to the committee, the housing department and its staff, which is led by Mike Clavo, who was previously the deputy, and he's now moved on to becoming the director, and Akeem Campbell is the deputy director. So they kind of pre-vet or pre-approve the application. So going into the housing committee itself, which is a wider grouping of persons, they have an idea. So they just kind of finalize what the pre-vetting would have done, right? So I think 3 to 4 months we should be able to cycle through, so we'll have a better idea, so we can source the additional funding to ensure that all those persons who would have been qualified can actually get their homes repaired. And I think the breakdown from what I remember from the charts was Grand Turk had about 7 million odd applicants that are projected to be qualified. Providenciales was around 6 million. I think North Caicos was like up to 2 million. Little Caicos under 500,000. South Caicos a little over 1 million or something like that. So I think our goal is to kind of cycle through these batches as quickly as possible, because we know there's other persons that didn't apply outright for whatever reason. We have persons who just, for some reason, they didn't know, and you have others who just missed the deadline. So there's been people since they've seen and heard about all these applicants going in that they've been like, okay, man, when is it going to open up? When is it going to open up? So we have to cycle through the initial set, then we can be in a position to open up. But what I think we're going to do, particularly because clearly Grand Turk and Provo took it serious enough, between 7 million and $8 million and 6 million and respectively. So that might take a little bit more time to go through. But places like a South Caicos or Middle Caicos, which is 500,000 to 1 million, those are they'll probably be finishing the next batch if they aren't finished already. So once they're finished and the works are done, we could probably open it up in those locations to say, all right, well, before Middle Cake is South Cake is North Cake is Salt Key or wherever the place may be. Since you don't have any more persons, we could open it up for those islands. Say, okay, well, let's open it up so we could continue rather than waiting until we complete everybody in its entirety.
Right.
So that's what we're looking at. So,
right.
So yeah.
So you said that the tender for the contractors
closed yesterday.
So what do you think is the time frame after going through all of that to be able to say, okay, work is going to start with these repairs?
Well, before I commit to when the work is going to start,
yes,
I want to ensure we have enough contractors pre-qualified through the process. So I wouldn't speculate yet because that's the first step. So that's the first and main step, because once we get those persons pre-qualified, then we'll be able to send out the BOQs for those contractors to be able to put in bids. Now we have the BOQs and all the packages for the homes that we've already inspected ready, so it shouldn't take long after we do the confirmation process. What I've learned in my year and change being the Minister of Infrastructure is that while something might seem straightforward in terms of the evaluation process, if you don't have all the personnel together to be able to do the evaluation and then finalize the results and all that stuff in between, then you can't move forward. So I know the timeline I would like to see happen.
Right.
So in my mind, once that's done, I don't think we should take more than a month before we can have those BOQs and stuff sent out so the contractors could vet. And just so persons know and understand, the last time we sent it out, because we previously sent it out and we got like 5 bidders for the whole country, which wouldn't have been enough anyway.
Correct.
And out of that 5, we didn't have anybody that met the qualification. So what we did was right away send it back out. We organized town hall meetings on every island so we could speak directly to the contractors. So the housing team and myself, we went island to island, basically to explain what it's about, to get the scare factor out of the actual tendering process, because for some people it's not easy and straightforward. But I think once we went through it, they understood. And because for me personally, when I look at the actual tender, I was like, wait, there's a lot of information that's required. Then I made send Director Clavo a message right away. This would have been before Christmas time. I say, hey, Director Clavo, early in the new year, we need town hall meetings to give contractors the best opportunity. And then after that, we actually extended an additional 2 weeks to make sure they had enough time to put in proper bids to pre-qualify. Because again, and this is what I told the contractors, and this is what the team told the contractors. If you're in, you're in. If you're out, you're out. So if you're in, you have an opportunity to go after $16 million plus worth of work over the next few years. You can't beat that because it's straightforward work, as well as changing cupboards, moving tiles, fixing roofs, changing windows, things that our local contractors do monthly, daily, weekly. So these are things within our realm that's very easy, that's not outside of our skill set, like some of the other bigger projects that we might have a little bit more trouble to be able to get.
Okay. So now, program number 3.
Program number 1 now.
Sorry, program
number 1.
Yes,
The number 3, 2, 1. Program number 1. All right. This, let me see, this is my baby program, and it's taking some time to birth. But sometimes the best things take some time.
Yes.
Right. So you say how it goes, good things come to those who wait. There you go. That's the phrase. So where we are now, it's been open. The program 1 is concessions for residential developers. So there's 2 main parts to that particular program.
Yes.
First part is any person who is developing 5 units or more, whether on private land or government land, if they get a proposal, can get up to 100% concessions on all the materials and stuff they brought in. They can get an immigration protocol if they need it, depending on the scale.
Yes.
So if you're doing 5 apartment units, you could apply to the housing department to be able to get that concession, which would be more than any concession that's on the market now ordinarily. So once it's 5 units or more, that's available to you. Now, we haven't had much or any applications for that one as yet for some reason, and I know people are building.
Yes.
So apply. Please, if you're doing 5 units, just apply. So that's available for you, any person. That's open, right?
Right.
So that's one portion. Now the second portion, which is the most important part, is for the large scale development. Now we have our models, we have tracts of land identified. What we haven't had up to this point, which we are very close to getting, is the ability for the developer or the proposed developer to be able to leverage the land itself to source financing.
Okay.
So the initial model was, okay, we provide the land, you provide the ability to build, so you find your own level of funding in terms of financing, but we pre-vet all of the potential applicants. So what I would have told many people that would have asked about the program, it's like, all right, listen, go and get a financial statement from your bank or whatever financial institution just to confirm your level of borrowing, which is a straightforward letter to whom it may concern. So at least you know that if we put a house on the market that's $150,000 and you can borrow up to $200,000, you know you already qualified in your Turks and Caicos Islander, particularly for the use of government land, right? But that wasn't taken up as readily as we would like, so we had to go back to the drawing board relatively quickly. So now what we would have passed in cabinet no more than about a week ago, actually, is changes to the Crown Land Ordinance, right? This is the proposal, so they have to go back and draft the actual changes specific. But the gist is, one, you could buy the land outright as a developer at the 50% belonger discounted rate. You would have covenants put on it because you're going to be using it for housing specifically, and because it's Crown land and it's for residential housing, you would only be able to sell it on to Turks and Caicos Islanders. We're not going to do the Brighton route, which opened it up to everybody, which ended up being a problem in the long run, right? So that's one option. You also would be able to lease the land as a developer, and then you have create mechanisms under which you can lease it in the short term, but when you sell it on, the Turks and Caicos Islander who would be buying it, they would also be able to convert that into freehold title, because at the end of the day, we want to make sure that the Turks and Caicos Islander end user is an owner, which is the whole purpose of Program 1 to begin with, right? Mass scale housing. And the last option would be an auction option, which would essentially be, okay, well, you and I want the same tract of land. We're both developers. You and I want the same tract of land. So how do you choose who gets the land? It could be first come, first serve, but that's a potential option. And of course, we want to make sure that, one, we get the best value for money, but we don't want it to raise so high the price itself that the end user pays too much, can't afford it. So there's a balance that we'll find with that auction option, particularly when there's competition. Or we could also, because again, you could also use the model that that the Crown Land Advisory Panel uses when they're dispensing Crown land for commercial use, where you basically have the person apply, the Crown Land unit agrees that whatever the use they have it for is something that government would be interested in. You send it to cabinet approves that initially, and then they send it out to say, okay, well, we have this person who's interested in this plot of land. Are there any other competing interests? And then they vet all the applications after that, and then they send all to cabinet to make a decision. So that's also an option that already exists as well. that we have under the current Crown Land Ordinance. But those are the changes, and I think once we have that done, then we can legitimately supercharge this program, because we've had proposals in for some time now, but we haven't been able to move to the next step, which is to vet those until these changes are made. So that's where we are.
When you say proposals, were there many applicants?
We had about 6 different proposals for different tracts of land throughout the Turks and Caicos Islands. But to ensure that they are all viable, we have to make these changes, because if there's a developer that wants to develop private land, they could make the proposal for the concessions right now. So they could do it. So if you have your own private land and you want to just the concessions to develop your private land for the purpose of housing, you could do that right now under the policy. But the majority of the proposals are focused on government land itself. So we have to make it viable, or more viable than we believe it is right now, for persons to apply and make their options viable.
Right. So basically, when this housing scheme came out, program came out, like you said, a lot of people were excited, especially about program 1, because everyone is thinking about, how do I get a key to my home and start moving in. So I think a lot of people are anxious to see this policy, this program move forward. So basically, at this time, we're still waiting to get, like you said, to deal with the land issue and get more developers to be able to hit the ground running before individuals are even able to apply for that portion of it. Okay, that's a good clarification, because when the whole program came out and it was the application process, I know a lot of people were wondering, okay, how do I apply? And I think a lot of people were thinking about getting a home right away.
Exactly, because the initial application process was open to developers to apply to make proposals. So it would have had the sheet, the criteria sheet, which would have all the criteria for the developer to send in all the business plan, business license, beneficial owners, all these details, so they can be a part of the application process. So that was step 1, and step 2 would have been, once we found the preferred developer to be able to move forward with the housing, then we would have sent the proposals to cabinet from the housing committee, approve them, and then get into the quasi-development agreement to move that forward, and then make those available to persons throughout the Turks and Caicos Islands. Now, while again there's been a delay because of the issue with the land, this is something that will come to fruition, I believe, before we get to the polls, hopefully, all things considered. But I think the housing committee or the housing department, myself and the ministry haven't stopped pushing, because we literally continue to push. So whatever has been asked of us to make it more viable, went to the drawing board. We had proposals initially, maybe 3 months ago, that we thought would get the job done. It was presented in cabinet, wasn't agreed upon. So it's all right, well, there were some suggestions on how it could be made better. So it went back to the drawing board, came back last week, got passed. So now we rocking and rolling.
Great. So before we wrap up on the housing part of it, for anyone who had applied for any of these programs, were there anyone who were refused, would they have the option to apply for, say if I apply for program 1, do they have the right to apply for the additional programs as well?
Well, I think each program caters to a different audience or a different segment of society, right? So program 3 particularly, those would be persons in really severe living conditions, or homes, if they're out of their traditional neighborhood, they have a house or a plot of land that they would want to move back into the traditional homes, then you're talking about a demo and a rebuild completely. So you're talking about a new 1 or 2 bedroom home completely. So that's for your elderly and your most vulnerable. So that ain't gonna be for the young, strapping men and women of the country who can do for themselves. That ain't for them. So that's the elderly and the most vulnerable. So that's their program. Program 2 is targeted at persons that have damages to their homes or need to have it improved or to increase the living standard that they have from a human rights and other standards, right? That just don't have the financing to do it themselves.
Correct.
So that's another segment, which is a huge segment actually.
Yes.
And the good part about that program for me particularly is while there is criteria on how you determine who would qualify and who wouldn't, it doesn't make the assumption that, okay, well, this person looks like they have money, so they should be able to help themselves.
Right.
But if your situation presents that after 5 years, you haven't done anything, after 10, 15 years, you haven't done anything, well, clearly, fundamentally, something is wrong.
Yes.
Right? So we're here to help. So, and again, it's a strict vetting process. So we have definite criteria on not just the house itself to make sure that it actually needs the type of repairs that's being requested. But of course, we vet you as the individual applicant because we don't necessarily want to be fixing millionaires and billionaires' homes here in the Turks and Caicos Islands either.
Yes.
So while we are helping government, we want to help people who can't help themselves as well, or try to help as best as possible. And then, of course, in my view, program one is to target young professionals, whether single parents, whether persons who have been long-term renters but want to be owners as well as Turks and Caicos Islanders.
Yes.
So we want to make sure that there are several price points. Now, I know the last time I spoke about this, persons were hopping on the 250 example that was given by the former director of RBC Bank
Yes.
at the launch itself. But that was just an example,
Yes.
right? So there should be options for as low as 150 or even lower, depending on the type of system that's used. So we're not just open to your traditional brick and mortar. We're more open to, can the system withstand the hurricane force winds that we might experience in the hurricane belt here in the Turks and Caicos Islands. So whatever that system looks like,
Right.
if it helps to bring the price point down without compromising your safety as an end user, then we will entertain that, because some people might just only be able to afford a $100,000 home. But if you could build a system, 2-bedroom, $100,000 home, that might be perfect for you where you are in your life. And again, at some point, I believe once this program gets really going, these might be transition homes for young families, for persons who actually might just be, okay, well, you have two young persons, could be two women, could be two men. They buy jointly
Right.
2-bedroom home, so they don't have to pay rent or they don't have to live with their parents. So they use their joint incomes. And now, thankfully, some banks, I don't know if all banks, but some banks allow two individuals that aren't married to be able to have a loan together, whereas before that wasn't the case. So
Yeah,
even that,
yeah,
right?
I know that a lot of banks allow that. They may have to qualify on their own,
Right.
but they still would allow it.
Right, but I think what they also do now, though, you don't qualify. You don't have to qualify individually.
Okay.
You can qualify together, even if you're not married. So it's I believe it's based on the equality notion that happens in most countries.
Okay.
I don't want to call it
Yes.
lattice, but you get what I'm saying, right?
Yes.
So that notion that two persons can be partners without having to be married.
Yes.
And so once the facility, so you get more buying power. So that's even an option moving forward. So if you can borrow $100,000, I can borrow $100,000, we could get a $150,000 home together, which might be 1 or 2 bedrooms. So we move into that, and then in another 5 years, we both move up in our careers, whatever, financially. One may sell their interest to the person who's there, they take on their home, and another buy another home. So it could be a nice transition home as well. But the main thing is to ensure that Turks and Caicos Islanders become owners and not renters forever and ever. Amen.
Definitely. Great. All right. I just wanted to, by asking you that question again, I just want to make sure, because I prefer to explain something 2 times, 3 times to make sure we get it.
No problem.
And that's for me, I find that the more I talk about something, the more I get more information out of it. I understand it more clearly. And the whole idea is for the audience to really understand what this housing policy brings to the table and what it can do for them as owners of homes and future homeowners in the Turks and Caicos Islands.
Yeah.
Great. So now let's turn to infrastructure in the Turks and Caicos Islands.
Yes.
You are rolling out a number of new infrastructure initiatives throughout the Turks and Caicos Islands. And I was just reading some of those that you were talking about. First of all, give us a little snippet of what's coming for some of the islands, and then I have 1 or 2 questions about them.
All right. So I usually try to do it by island so I could remember it easy. Right. So for Grand Turk, I think there's about $8 million worth of infrastructure improvement projects that are anywhere from started to noted in cabinet, means it's going into contract phase now. So we have West Road Bridge, Pond Street Bridge. That's about $600,000 or $1,000. We have about $4 million worth of road works to deal with Donkomeli, the Breezy Bray roads. That's for the Grand people to know these alleys and stuff. All Cairns, Ailey. This is tons of roads throughout Grand Turk. So that's $4 million on that. We also have a project.
Sorry, basically, how have you gone about in selecting these roads? Like, these were necessary areas that the communities have brought to your attention?
Well, for those roads that we selected this go round, because we had basically a list of roads for that everywhere that need either completely paving or resurfacing or just grading. So we basically tried to get some of the worst roads that have been in a deteriorated for the longest time to try to get the improvement. And for me, my focus primarily was on communities. So where our people live. So you got places where you have some traffic, and a lot of those roads are done. But community roads is something that for me personally I focus on, because and we'll get to Provo, but Leeward Highway needs improvements. It's been around 15, almost 20 years now, or whatever the time frame for it being done. But it's still in good enough condition that it'll last another 2 years. So while we have an eye on making some improvements on Leeward Highway, for example, getting roads done to and from all of the communities on Providenciales is of a higher priority to me, because again, you can't have people being in what we would like to say a five-star destination, and you gotta go home every evening on bumpy roads. So you're going to you work at a 5-star hotel, you give the people, your guests, 5-star service, and then you don't get none of it yourself. So it's counterproductive, because we have to ensure that all of our workers, from the highest to the lowest on the scale of employment, actually feels and are at their best, because that's the only way you can continue to give that service to your guests, or if it's a civil servant, the public that you're serving, because otherwise eventually you'll burn out. So you have to be able to rejuvenate. So you want your communities to be kind of pristine, because that helps you become more productive worker and or owner or entrepreneur, whichever career you in, So that's the focus. So that's how we pick those types of roads. Also, finally, we have the H.J. Robinson High School drainage project, which is about $1.5 million, because anybody who know H.J. Robinson High School from time immemorial in its 100-year history of being an institution knows that anytime it rains a little bit, it floods. So you either stay in your class or you can't move around the ground. So we finally got that project to the point where it's about to be signed off to move forward. So those things we know the money is there. We know it's going to be contracted. That's straightforward. And then we have another $2.1 million ponds project, which on the same West Road pond, we have the West Road Bridge. We're going to basically create a promenade. So we're going to excavate the pond itself, so make it a little bit deeper, backfill about half of it, and create a promenade where it could be nice walking, benches, and you would also have the ability to build stores or build facilities across there. And then, right, so on that same stretch is where some of the paving will be done. So you have a new bridge, new promenade, as well as that area be paved. So while the West Road Pond is just down from West Road itself, that whole lower area near the pond area will basically be revitalized. And if persons who know Grand Turk and seen the development on West Road from John Mizik straight down to the Pillory Beach side where Bohio is, all of that front road, where we call traditionally West Road, which used to have all kind of traditional homes, you have a lot of villas there. So all of that will help to uplift the area, and hopefully the residents of the area will be able to do something. And I believe we also have a project where we're going to refurbish the fish market as well. So that's quickly, Grand Turk. Sorry, let me go quickly. South Caicos, they have out to tender right now the revitalization of Campground, the redevelopment of Regatta Village, as well as a roads package of over $1 million for South Caicos. So that's their big infrastructure stuff. Middle Caicos, we have the Bambara Beach redevelopment. So that's already closed. That closed yesterday. So that's going to be evaluated over the next little bit. Also, Horse Stable Beach, I believe that has to go back out because we might have had a bid, but I don't think anyone's might be successful on that from the pricing, at least the feedback I got. We have the Bottle Creek Community Center as well. So that's going to be evaluated as well. So that's North Caicos, Middle Caicos. Now, Providenciales, you have what's going to be something in the neighborhood of a $6 million roads package. The community roads would have closed yesterday, and the highways and roads, that'll close on the 21st of this month. Now, the community roads package includes a fix for the beginning of creating a 4-lane highway on Millennium Highway. So from the downtown, like the last roundabout where it intersects, going straight to the entrance of Bay Road. So all of that is going to be 4 lanes. And so that's phase 1. And then we'll just continue that with another tendon, another project, probably next year or the year before that.
Help with the traffic congestion?
That's the idea. Because at the very least, by extending the 4 lanes even further, that means more traffic can be on those roads. So it'll be ease up. So it moves the point where the quote unquote bottleneck would be. So you'd have a nice roundabout going into Bay Road and continuing single lanes going on Millennium Highway itself. So, but longer term, all of the Millennium Highway will be a highway. And if you look at it, you see where the poles are. They're literally further out on the outside. So there is enough space to carry that basically straight down almost to Armagnac. So that's a big piece of the issue that we hope will address that traffic in the downtown area. Right? Because of the bottlenecks where they are, that'll stretch it out in the morning and stretch it out in the evening, so you don't have as much congestion right at that, because there'll be space to go. So plus we'll be dealing with the Academy Way. Fingers crossed that tender gets a good bit of that. Ends on the 21st. And of course we have the Fuller Walk-in. I have to follow up. That should be out soon. Also, the bike park should be out now. That's closed yesterday. Also, we have the refurbishment of the 5 Keys and Q-Town parks as well. So again, that's the community stuff, because again, those are for the people. So the roads, and then we have another internal tender that was closed and contracted for just under $1 million, so about $1 million of community roads. So several roads across Providenciales. That's ready to go, separate and apart from the ones that are out to tender from a capital standpoint. So we're looking to have significant push from that standpoint. And just generally speaking, outside the capital program,
Yes.
we have the community enhancement program, which is about a $3 million package for gazebos, sidewalks, speed bumps, docks, different things that we're doing across the Turks and Caicos Islands. So that has various projects that we've already done. We're coming down to the end of the budget cycle now. We're looking to finish out that money before the year is done. So there's a couple of things that we have to do. So again, that's in a nutshell between what is contracted, out to tender, close, about to be evaluated. So those are the things that we're pushing to get through and get done for the people of this country.
So basically, all what you've said, are you satisfied with where you are today and with all the projects that are in place and those that have been tendered already and is pushing forward? And you feel like it's going to make a big difference in the lives of the people? Well,
I'm happier than I was 2 weeks ago. Now that we're finally closed, and then a lot of the tenders actually have bidders, because that's the biggest issue. It's twofold. One, getting the tenders out, the ITT invitation and tenders out, then actually getting bidders to bid, because again, the process, if you don't understand it could seem daunting. And two, getting quality bids, because you have to have people pre-qualified, one, and then after they pre-qualify, once they go through the technical criteria as well as the pricing criteria, then they get the award. So there's several steps. So I'm happier, like I said, than I was 2 weeks ago. But I'm hopeful. And if we can get a bidder for all, meaning an awardee, not just a bidder, just an awardee, an awarded contractor for all of these contracts that is closing now, I think we'll be in good stead. You'll see some real movement in terms of infrastructure. And what I would like them to understand or be cognizant of, this is really a 2-year cycle from concept to award to completion of project.
Right.
Because a lot of the projects that are now at the closing for tender, these are things we spoke about at the beginning of the budget cycle.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
So they had to go from budgeting for it, doing all the business cases, the plans, getting the ITT ready, sending it out in some instances, going back out, right, to ensure we get the appropriate bidders. So now we're in a place that I'm very hopeful that, again, we're going to have successful bidders, and then we can get them contracted, get them mobilized, so people could really see a real push and a real boom. And this isn't anything to do with an election coming up in the next 12 months. It's just literally what the process is. Because, of course, I'm in the spending money business in the Ministry of Infrastructure. Or like the Deputy Premier says, he raised the money, we spend it. So he raised it, I won't spend it. Make sure it gets out into the public. And, of course, we want to improve the infrastructure and improve the environment for everybody, Turks and Caicos Islanders, visitors, residents alike. Because I think we have a gem and everybody knows it. So we have to get the infrastructure aligned with what we say we are. And I think that's a part of the process.
Yes, I think that's very important, keeping the infrastructure in line with the product that we offer and who we say we are. Well, thank you so much. We've said a lot on the show today, but I'm so happy that you came back, because I think that you gave a very clear definition and help us to understand even more clear where we are in terms of the housing programs as well as the infrastructure that's going on throughout the Turks and Caicos Islands. And so I am so happy that you are here. And just before we close, I'm just going to say, just give your last closing remarks before we end the show for today.
Thank you very much. And again, thanks for having me. And probably once we get all these contracts awarded, I coming back and I say, all right, this one award, that one award, this amount of money, that amount of money, all that in between. But just to the public to know that team infrastructure, team housing, team planning, team estates, team disaster management, just the team PPID is working for you. We have your best interests at heart, and we'll continue to push to deliver whatever it takes. We will do it just to deliver for you.
Thank you. So just also want to say thank you for all of you who are tuned in on the live broadcast. And definitely, if you have any questions or comments, don't feel free to put it in the comment section. And definitely, the Honorable Minister will answer any question that appears after the show. So until next time, as I always say to you, Stay safe and remain blessed. Have a very blessed night.
The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed on this show belong solely to Let's Talk TCI Real Estate and not that of Keller Williams TCI or any of its affiliates. Any action you take upon the information provided on this show is strictly at your own risk, and Let's Talk TCI Real Estate guests or hosts will not be liable for any losses and damages in connection with the use of the material. I am not an investment advisor, broker, or dealer.